Well, hello, everybody. Tommy Dougal here from Winnipeg Alternative Media. And as promised, we have a wonderful guest with us here tonight that we have been waiting to have on for quite some time. But before we do that, of course, we do have to hear a quick word from our wonderful sponsors at Bulldog Demolition. If you're in the Winnipeg area, need any kind of demolition done, indoor, outdoor, commercial, residential, and you want to support Winnipeg Alternative Media, free speech, and independent journalism, well, you want no other than...
Sometimes you got to knock it all down and start from scratch. When you do, call the experts at Bulldog Demolition.
Here, boy!
They're up for the job. Commercial and residential. They'll safely demo houses, garages, buildings, driveways, sidewalks, and more, including interior demolition. Concerned about mold or asbestos on your property? Consider it remediated. Some jobs you need to leave to the professionals. Call Bulldog Demolition.
And we're also going to hear a quick word from, of course, somebody who we love to death and, who we help, promote and get out there and support as much as possible, that being the best citizen journalist. I'm going to go ahead and say, like I always do, probably in Canada, but certainly here in Manitoba, that being Marty Gold and the Great Canadian Talk Show. If you are in Winnipeg and Manitoba and you do not know Marty Gold, the Great Canadian Talk Show, we feature all of his work, his great podcast up on our website, wham.live. But you can find his podcast anywhere where you can find podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, and all the likes. You really need to be listening to his reporting.
When you support the Great Canadian Talk Show, your donation makes sure that the investigations, the interviews, the fact-finding, the truth-telling can carry on. When you sponsor the Great Canadian Talk Show, you're telling the community that you think their stories matter. Our public affairs coverage continues to make a difference, challenging the slanted media narratives and giving a voice to the community. When you provide funding for the Great Canadian Talk Show, you're supporting old-fashioned investigative reporting that matters. Support TGCTS today.
Yep, you better believe it. And of course, we will feature another great clip from one of his latest podcasts on the Prairie Truth broadcast coming up, of course, this Thursday. That's every Thursday at 9 p.m. Central. But let's not waste any more time here. Without further ado, here's, of course, our wonderful guest for the evening, Mr. Randy Hillier. And, of course, along for the ride, we have, once again, sort of a co-host slash, I don't know. What do we call you, Daryl? Co-host slash,
the boss works.
There we go. Well, let's go with that. Daryl Inkster, of course, back with us again here tonight, who was a very big part of helping this happen, and we thank him greatly for that. Randy, again, like I mentioned in the intro, I feel this has been a long time coming. I've been wanting to have you on for a long while. You're sort of a Canadian legend at this point. I did run into you on Parliament Hill for a brief interview during the convoy. But there was all kinds of disruptions with people filming live those first couple days.
Well, I'm going to cut you off for a minute, Todd. My bail conditions prohibit me from speaking about that. So if any of your audience or mine that want to hear about that, I can't do it on social media, or else I go back to the Crowbar Inn. So.
And I kind of had a feeling that might be the case. And I've been in a similar situation once before. So, yes, I totally understand. Anyhow, okay, we will certainly move past that real quick.
But I do think if your sponsor is Bulldog Demolition, I think you should bring him down to Ottawa. I think there's a building on a hill there that needs to be tore down and rebuilt, just as an aside.
Yeah, I know where you're coming from. I think you might be right. I mean, the old architecture looks nice, but what's happening on the inside, I think, is kind of wrecked it for everybody.
Maybe just an interior demolition.
Yeah, that's a good call. A reno, really, in a sense. Okay, anyhow.
They probably don't have enough trucks to haul all the bullshit out of there.
That's a good call. There, see, we have Daryl along for the one-liners like that. He's as a co-host, he's sort of like I'm thinking of the Johnny Carson show. What was the co-host there?
That's before my time.
Oh shoot. Okay.
It was always too late at night for me.
Okay. It might come to me later in the broadcast. Anyways, Randy, again, you've been extremely active, in everything that was the COVID 3-ring circus over the last several years. the amount of charges and tickets and stuff that you got is ranges somewhere up there and maybe some of the highest throughout the country. That all being done.
I think I probably have the greatest penalty record during COVID. 25 provincial offense charges, each one for $100,000 max and up to a year in jail. And now 9 criminal charges out of Ottawa from February of 2022. We beat 20 of the provincial charges. We've got 5 left to go. And then, of course, self-representing on the 9 criminal charges, where the Crown wants to put me in the crowbar in for 3.5 years for what I didn't do in Ottawa. I guess it would be the best thing to say.
Well, it looks like we lost Todd there for a bit. We'll have to wing it here, Andy. You keep going. You tell your story. I'll just sit quiet.
Well, I think that's the I was the first elected parliamentarian in the country to speak out against the first state of emergency, then the lockdowns, and then of course the masks and the jabs. So I became a bit of a thorn in the side for the powers that be, and they've tried to throw the book at me to keep me shut up and keep me quiet, but that hasn't happened yet, and I don't think it'll ever happen. Not going to go down without a fight anyway. So,
right on.
And many have been, of course, going down that road, myself and many Manitobans included. And we still have the ongoing situation with the Coots boys as well too. I'm sure you've been following that very closely.
Yeah, so, and there's hundreds of others as well. Like a lot of people won't realize. Just they might hear the bigger names on. But there are a lot of people that were charged in Ottawa and Windsor and Coots and various places, and our governments are being very abusive, using the legal system as a sword, as a weapon against people who spoke out, and. If we don't stem this tide, if we don't roll this back, our legal system will be no different than, and our RCMP and OPP and police will be no different than the Stasi and the KGB. That's what Trudeau and all our institutions started with COVID, was they opened the door and created a path towards an authoritarian, dystopian country called Canada.
Yes. Yeah. And even though we are beyond all of that, in a sense, the court cases are still ongoing, as of course we're discussing right now. And there's a lot to be said about that. And I'm sure we're certainly going to continue to get into that. But in so many other ways and so many other avenues, I guess all political, really, that very same road continues. We continue down that path.
Oh, absolutely. This is, and we had a wonderful opportunity in Washington last week, as not only we had presentations at the U.S. Senate with Senator Ron Johnson, high caliber people from around the world were there, and I was fortunate to be invited to speak at the U.S. Senate as well. And that was held in conjunction with the International Crisis Summit, which formerly had been known as the International COVID Summit. But everybody has realized that what COVID began, what it started, was a path towards far greater tyranny, far greater authoritarianism. And we're seeing this, whether we want to look at it with disease X that is being promoted, the 15-minute cities, the central bank digital currencies, vaccine, digital passports, you know, the bio-digital convergence, AI, the WHO treaty, all these things are mechanisms and powerful mechanisms for government to stifle freedom, for governments to control not only what individuals do in their lives or what they might want to pursue in their life, but also what they're allowed to say, who they're allowed to say it, and and that's why these people have all recognized that this is the Western liberal democracies are in a crisis, and uh, and we're, like I said, quite fortunate to have parliamentarians from around the world, renowned, incredible scientists, academics, researchers, legal minds, who have all had their eyes opened when we opened this COVID door 4 years ago, and if we sit back on our haunches, if we sit back and do nothing, then we will have, that dystopian, authoritarian, controlled life for whoever remains.
Yeah, I mean, this country is even just as of very recently continuing to want to jam through and pass more, bills and attacks on freedom of speech. The idea of being able to throw somebody in prison for for misgendering somebody or something like that, or refusing to comply with somebody else's decided supposed language, and how that becomes legality is of course well beyond me, but this is the evil that's at hand here. And isn't it unbelievable? I mean, I heard again, it struck me again even just today how unbelievable it is to live in a day and age here in this country of Canada, because it's kind of happened so fast in a way where I'm listening to the radio and there's just commercials, just almost like ads, but they're commercials. And I guess it's supposed to sound like public service announcements, but it sounds like this. Oh, by the way, on social media and throughout the internet, you can't get much news anymore. So you can't find news about what's going on in your country or in your community via social media because of the government and what they've asked, Facebook and blah, 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 others to do. And it's just, and it's just to hear that it's just a commercial, just sort of like, yeah, this is what's happening. Here's where we are. And so, so make sure that you, go find your news in such and such a way. And it's like, it's unbelievable to think that that's just a commercial on the radio.
Well, our mainstream media is a propaganda arm of government. When all of our mainstream media outlets, not only do they get heavily subsidized for wages now under Trudeau's slush fund, but the government is also their largest single advertiser. So, I did a little research on Canadian mainstream media, and fully 50% of all the revenues are derived from provincial and federal governments, as well as the wage subsidies and the content subsidies. So, they are bought, paid for, and will not bite the hand of the monster that is feeding them.
Of course.
I'm I'm not happy that the small independent alternative media are often caught up in this ban on Facebook and Instagram type of thing.
And that's exactly what I was going to say. If it really only actually made it a little harder to go see some of the absolute nonsense that comes from the government propaganda arm of the Canadian mainstream media, then heck, it would almost be a win. But no. Be. Yeah. But instead, of course, it's blanket and and so that's where we are.
But I'm going to say to you, Todd, like I did a couple of events down in southwestern Ontario, which is about a 5-6 hour drive from me a couple of weeks ago, and I've turned off network TV. I've turned off radio. But this one day, it was a long drive, so I decided to put on the radio, and it was enough to gag a maggot. It was just there's no news. There's nothing of value
No.
on. It's not even good entertainment. It's immature. It's childish. It's asking trivia questions about American TV celebrities and what they might eat for supper or something.
But the sad part is that sounds like you're talking about sort of what happens, in between, like, commercial breaks on a rock and roll radio station. I hear that same stuff coming from, say, here in our like AM news station here, CJOB in Winnipeg. It sounds like that.
Yeah, it's all just bullshit.
Yes.
It's like it's not news, and like I said, it's not even good entertainment.
No, it's terrible.
So it's very juvenile. It's very immature and poorly done. So I don't know. Like I listened to it for about an hour on that drive, and then I turned it off. I'm better off not hearing this garbage.
Yeah.
But these are people have become acclimatized. People have become accustomed. This has been a slow-moving but relentless attack on the intelligence.
Bring down the standards of everything.
Yeah, we have. Our media has, catered to the lowest common denominator in Canadian society, and it has no depth to it. It has nothing to it. So people would be. I'll say. If you want to become informed, turn off the news, turn off the TV, turn off the radio, and use the newspapers. If you've got any of those left over, use them to light up the wood stove, because there's nothing of value in these things anymore.
Yeah,
but
I agree.
It has facilitated and is continuing to facilitate the government's appetite for control and authoritarian measures on Canadians.
Yes. Let's go back to what happened there in Washington just over the last week or so. I guess you received an official invite, like you got invited to go there. How does that work? Who kind of gave you the invite? How does that all go? How many other Canadians were there? Give us a little more insight. What kind of Americans did you get to sort of rub elbows with? Give us a little more detail. It sounds like a really cool story.
Well, it was, and so this was the International Crisis Summit. It was held in conjunction with the largest political event in American. What
was that title again? I want to call it up on screen.
It was CPAC 2024.
Okay.
So
right.
So it's the largest convention every year. The Conservative Political Action Conference. This year, people like Donald Trump spoke there, Vivek, all the big names from American media were there, whether Steve Bannon, all the players.
But there was a certain something happening with the COVID situation or something like that.
So as part of that, we also had the International COVID or International Crisis Summit held. And we had a huge, wonderful contingent of Canadians. I called it the Canadian invasion of Washington. The only difference is the last time we invaded the United States in 1814, we burnt the White House down. So we didn't do that, but we lit a few fires down there, and just some of the names that Theo Fleury and Jamie Saleh and Dr. William Mackis were out there.
Nice.
A great many people who were instrumental in Ottawa in February of 2022. Boom Truck Ben and Saba, Harold Yonkers,
Well, and they
You
had
know,
they had invited Pastor Pulowski to go down there for about a year or so ago as well too. So I mean, this whole thing about like, hey, what the heck is happening up in Canada started well before Tucker came up here and did what he did in Alberta.
oh, sure. And, Pastor Henry Hildebrand was there.
Okay, yeah,
Like it was a lot of, we were walking around with the who's who of the
yeah.
freedom movement, and not just the Canadians, but also um, um, from around the world. A great many European parliamentarians were there, like Robert Roos from the Netherlands, Christine Anderson from Germany.
Oh,
A
we just had
number,
Christine here in Winnipeg not long ago. I'm going to be having her on the show sometime soon, hopefully. Actually,
yeah,
yeah. No, that's because everything that's happening there with the farmers. Oh my gosh.
yeah, and then all kinds of powerful, Ed Dowd, Dr. Pierre Corey, Robert Malone,
Mhm.
Jessica Rose, Del Bigtree, like
Wow.
there was. This was, and I'm not even mentioning a quarter of them. Like
Yeah.
the list was pretty substantial. So, out of all those people, each of the people at the ICS were asked if we wanted to speak at the Senate, and if we were to provide a 500-word um, uh, presentation to Senator Ron Johnson, and he selected 22 of those people um, to give their presentations, and I was one of them. This was and the people there again, people from Australia, people from uh, uh,
What an honor.
Romania, people from all around the world.
Wow.
And it was a powerful. Well, the whole week was a powerful message, and all these people, see, COVID opened their eyes as well, opened all of our eyes, and we know that we have to be, as I said to the conference, 250 years ago, the American colonists were faced with horrendous legislation. They called them the intolerable acts, the coercive acts, things like the Stamp Act and the Sugar Act. And there was a bunch of things that were depriving them of their ability to be free and earn a living. And they rose up and um, threw away the authority that had been putting the yoke on their freedom. Uh, and as I said, we have far worse intolerable acts now being coming at us. Far more coercive acts and dangerous and harmful acts. And we have to be the new sons and daughters of liberty if we are going to have any freedom for our children and grandchildren.
Yes. Yeah. No. 100%. And I think what that leads me to, because I was kind of waiting for the right moment to do so, because I think probably one of the number one reasons why I've been, really hoping to have you on for the last little while is for this reason alone. And so I guess now must be the time is to ask you this. In your years, and I guess this would go beyond just your years in Parliament. I'm sure, I'm sure you can kind of go back a little further than that, but especially with years in Parliament, what did you see change? What did you notice changing? What kind of changes did you see? Anything of that notion? I'm sure you kind of get where I'm coming from here in your time in that position. And if there's certain sort of like almost key points or key little moments, even where you kind of notice, like, even like, again, even before COVID, like, whoa, what's going on here? This isn't what I remember kind of signing up for, or this isn't the way people acted when I first got into this, or anything of that notion. I would love to hear about anything like that.
Well, I've been around for 66 years, and I was in elected office for 15. So I've seen a lot of things, and you can parse them out in different categories, and let's just hit a couple of key ones, I guess, is where should I start? Well, let's put it this way. We don't have any men in Canada. I shouldn't say we don't have any men. The last couple of generations are more like we've been raising pansies than we've been raising men in this country. That would be one thing.
Well, I'm glad that you started with that, because it's funny enough, and I wish I had the clip called up. I think I played this clip once on a broadcast, like sometime maybe about a year ago. But it's a wonderful clip, and it's two members of parliament that almost basically want to go at each other like in a fist fight, like in I think like the early to mid 90s or something like that, like right there on the House floor. And it's wonderful, and it actually looks like the kind of government or the kind of politics that you maybe want to see a little more of, because they're like, they're invested, they're emotional, there's something going on there. These guys are doing the whole like we're taking off the tie thing. They're crossing, and they were going to go at each other. I wish I could call the clip up now, but for what you just said, kind of speak to that to me. And funny enough, that's the kind of reasons why I asked the question. Yeah.
Well, that's, like early in COVID, I was astonished in the first year of COVID. There's one thing that really hit me powerfully was most of the people coming in to see me, phoning me, talking to me, attending No More Lockdown rallies were young moms. It was women.
Yes,
and,
yes.
They were the most vocal supporters, the most vocal opponents to these outrageous mandates. But the corollary of that is my greatest opponents, the most vocal and vociferous opponents to me, were men. The women had far more backbone and far more gonads than the men did.
They left their jobs. All the nurses that saw what was coming, all gone, and men sat around wearing masks and dealing with some of the most ridiculous nonsense for the entire time.
As long as they could play their video game or watch porn, I guess that was okay. I don't know. So that's
free
one
government
thing.
Money.
And then but that's also we see that in our. I saw it and fought it with my 4 children who are all adults now. But, as the schools brought in the no-touch rule, where they got rid of checking in hockey, no contact in hockey, no contact in football. If somebody hurt your feelings, raise your hand up and ask for somebody to come and help you. But in addition to that, I would also say, when I was growing up, every day we recited the Lord's Prayer in school. Every day we sang God Save the Queen. Every day we sang the national anthem. We were realizing, we were practicing, we were understanding that there was something far more divine, something far more above human beings. And we've relegated that. We've been derisive towards faith. We ridicule it, and most people have no idea that the foundation of a country, that it's built on, is on faith. And when you take that foundation completely away and destroy it, well, let's not be surprised that we end up having public policies now that promote cutting the breasts off young women so that they can giving them blockers so that they can think that they're a male, and doing, cutting things off little boys and giving them blockers and telling them that they can be girls. Like, we've got a real moral decay. We have a masculine decay, and and then we have a political decay that, I'm not sure which one came first, which one, but clearly our political system is no longer premised on the idea that an individual is elected to represent their constituents, that people are elected to be a talking head, to be a parrot for, some, cult of leadership, whether it's Justin or Pierre or whoever it may be. But we have diminished the role of elected representatives to the point where they are of no value to anyone.
And like, did you notice that shortly after getting into politics? In 2002, it kind of almost seems like, well, that process was maybe kind of sort of underway, did there seem like there was maybe still a few good men left in politics in 2002, or did you, as soon as you get in and got into parliament, kind of go like, oh shit?
No, the process was well on its way, and I thought that would be one of the things that I would do in my time there, was to stem that tide. And there was good people, a handful of people who would buck the leaders' edicts and the leaders, the inside men in the party. But I would say in the Ontario legislature, I was the last one. Like, there just nobody else was going to jeopardize their career, or one of the last ones anyway. And but it's been going on. Like, we saw that with Jody Wilson-Raybould in the Liberal Party, when she tried to oppose the chicanery and the skullduggery of the SNC Lavalin affair. This is, it's a pandemic through all our established political parties. One is no better than the other. And really, they are all serving not the public's interest, but they are serving the corporate interests that are the big donors to the party, and they're all the same, and it's the same in every province.
Yeah. I want to thank the audience for doing two things for me here this evening. One, bringing up this clip so I can actually play it, because I think it's just going to be worth its while, because it's great. And I think Randy might get a kick out of it too if he's never seen it before. And also, Ed McMahon, somebody also very early in the broadcast reminded me that who I was thinking of, the co-host for the Carson Show, was Ed McMahon. And yes, Daryl Inkster can often be a bit of an Ed McMahon, because he'll only chime in with the kind of one-liner that is just, well, it's more than perfect, and the timing is just, quintessential. But anyways, here is Stone Cold Daryl Stinson.
For shame.
No. I hear the word racist from that side. Do you have the fortitude or the gonads to stand up and come across here and say that to me, you son of a bitch?
I didn't really see I didn't know that this clip had music with it like that.
So,
Okay, so the clip I'm used to is just the normal clip without the added music. But yeah, hey, now that's I don't know. To me, that's the kind of parliament I think I'd maybe get back involved in voting for, or a little more intrigued by.
well,
Hey,
there are times. Go ahead,
before
Darryl.
we go any further, guys, there may be a little bit of confusion, Randy. In Manitoba here, we call our provincial representatives MLAs.
Yeah.
In Ontario, you guys are called MPPs provincially. I think some people might confuse and think that you were a federal MP, which you were not, right?
That's correct. So that's just a little bit of a quirk of history. The Ontario Parliament began before the federal Parliament.
That's right. Yeah.
So it was called the Parliament of Upper Canada. So and it's retained that nomenclature. It's retained that. So the members in Ontario are called members of the provincial parliament. Most provinces use the term members of the legislative assembly. In Quebec, they use the term members of the National Assembly. And again, that's one of those. The Parliament of Lower Canada before 1867 was called the National Assembly. So so those are just, but we're all the same. MLAs, MNAs, MPPs. They're all cut.
Yeah, I just didn't want people to think that you're a member of the federal bunch.
No. Strictly Ontario.
Yeah.
And it's strictly out of politics altogether as well.
And take us a little bit through that as well too. How did how did that all transpire? How did that go down for you?
Well, when as I started at the beginning, I was the first elected parliamentarian anywhere in the country to oppose the state of emergency first, and the subsequent mandates. And I knew we were into a big fight, and I thought if I put all to everything into it, that we could turn this around within a couple of years. That all changed in Ottawa when I saw the police using physical violence and abusing and trampling on and using tear gas and batons on peaceful Canadians. Like that's something that hadn't happened in Canada since the 1919 general strike in Winnipeg. We had thought we had learned our lesson that in a free and democratic society, you don't do that.
Yes.
But what was more disturbing to me, and the big wake up call, was that there was a majority of Canadians who were actually applauding and cheering on this violence towards other peaceful Canadians. Although that was a huge and euphoric and joyful and friendly and happy and peaceful time in Ottawa in February of 2022, the majority of Canadians actually bought the false, the divisive, the vitriol of Justin Trudeau, and were applauding the harm, the injury towards other Canadians. And I realized that the problems that we face are not going to be solved by this political system anytime soon, when the majority of Canadians actually like lockdowns or liked lockdowns. The majority of Canadians liked taking away one's freedom and putting people who weren't jabbed into second-class status and locking them up in quarantine rooms when they came back from holidays, or and they were happy to snitch on others. We've got a very morally decayed and destructive population, and that really those are the people who legitimize the government. Those are the people that the government is going to take advantage of, and I don't want to represent someone who wants me to snitch on their neighbors. I don't want to represent somebody who wants me to applaud violence against my friends and family members and neighbors. To hell with them. I'm not going to do it. So I just said, time for me to. I spent 2 years fighting the COVID mandates. I said, for the next period of time, I've got to take care of my own family, make sure that we're well taken care of, as well as fight this battle in Ottawa, these trumped up charges, criminal charges that they want to put me in jail for 3.5 years for.
And that's just unbelievable. How is that continuing to unfold? When are you next? You might not be able to say much about this, and that's okay if you can't. But whatever you can disclose, when are you in court next, and how is that unfolding?
So it's unfolding slowly, but thankfully I got rid of my lawyer because he was just going to suck every penny out of me, and I'd be homeless. And my wife would be homeless if I continued to have a lawyer. So in November, I discharged my lawyer and decided to represent myself. And that's been going well. My next, I've had 4 or 5 judicial pre-trials so far. I have another date on March 26th and another one on April 23rd. Another one on April 26th, another one September 3rd, and there'll be more, because it is clear to me, the evidence that they have disclosed to me demonstrates clearly that a bunch of the evidence is fraudulent. And I mean fraudulent. There's no pretense about this. Mm-hmm. So I'm fighting...
Just like with the Hoots boys.
Oh, yeah. So I'm filing what's called a Stinchcombe application in the end of this month, as well as an O'Connor application to compel the Crown to reveal all the evidence that they have against me, not just the stuff that they want to have and the fraudulent evidence that they have. So that will be an interesting opportunity to see how the court responds to those applications. And then, but I'm confident at the end of the day, we are going to show that the Crown and the Ottawa Police Services and others are engaged in an abusive process, that there has been political interference, that these were not charges because I was a criminal or engaged in criminal activities. These are charges because I was an outspoken political opponent of the government, and they wanted to shut me up.
Such as when we saw Maxime Bernier get arrested here in our home province of Manitoba.
Yeah. Now, and many of us got those charges, not the 338 members in the federal parliament, because they all told their party lines. However, those were, not to be trivial about it, but because I got a bunch of those ones as well. These provincial offenses, but now we're into the bare knuckle round with these guys. These are criminal charges. This is they're proceeding by indictment and want me to spend 3.5 years in prison. And I've never been charged with any criminal offense in 66 years.
Well, I've always thought of the law when we're talking about a criminal offense is where is the injured party?
Well, there is no injured party.
Of course not. There's no real complaintiff.
But
it's all vindictive prosecution. It's all just political motivated bullshit from top to bottom.
Well, and this idea that because because the entire known world decided to go down the same path altogether, that there's still this process of digging their heels in, and there's sort of like we cannot admit we're wrong, or at least we can't to a certain extent, and it's awkward how that fluctuates because in some cases you have them fully just drop everything, do their best to just pretend it never happened, wipe their hands clean, and walk away. And of course, that's bad too, because they need to be held accountable. But in some cases, you'll get that reaction. And in other cases, it's no, batten down the hatches, dig in our heels, we're going to get you. And it's really hard to follow.
As we saw in Coots, the two fellas that have been released so far were all the charges that they were originally charged with, and substantial charges, conspiracy to commit murder.
Yes.
Were all had no actual substance, no basis for those charges, but they held them for 2 years, deprived them of their families, deprived them of their freedoms, deprived them of their livelihoods, and were using the legal system in a very punitive fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I gather, they both pled guilty to charges that they were never charged with originally. And
one of them was like, and it's a very lesser charge. It was sort of like improper storage of a firearm.
Well, one was improper transportation. Didn't get his paperwork to transport his handgun from one location to another. But they weren't going to let these guys go until they took every last bit of pound of flesh out of them as they could. So I don't know what's going to happen with the other two. But you've got to. This is I call it a legal machine, a legal monster, and everybody in the system is part of that monstrous machine. Even your own defense lawyers are part of the bloody monstrous machine.
Yes.
And I just said I'm not going to have anything to do with any of them. Now. That's just what I've decided to do. But I'm not going to feed this bloody machine my money, and I'm going to make them. I'm going to try to make them pay for what they've done, not me for what I didn't do.
Well said. So that's sort of the avenue of choosing to sort of self-represent.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hey, I mean, and you've been around the legal system and the political system long enough. I'm sure you know what you're doing. You would probably be a really good candidate for, making that choice when others seem to kind of make it maybe a little bit as an unqualified decision or an uneducated decision. But in your case, I could see that being a 100%, very much, the right decision and a very good avenue for sure.
Yeah, and that's an important not. I've got a certain set of skills developed through the parliamentary system. I'm not, I can speak publicly easy, and a lot of people don't realize this. In Ontario, as in most of our legislatures, they are still a court. Parliaments are a court that make legislation. We have the same environment, an adversarial environment. The speaker is the impartial referee, like the judge. We, in the legal courts or the parliamentary courts, you submit motions, you argue those motions, and unlike in Parliament where it becomes a party vote, I've elected to have a jury decide. So it's not
Nice.
dissimilar to a parliamentary system, but it is, for a great many people, it is a foreign environment, uses an alien language and what appears to be archaic processes. But I encourage everybody to at least look at that, and it's not that difficult, depending on what your charges are and what you're faced with. But everybody should go, and next time you get a speeding ticket, go and contest it, challenge it, and learn how our courts operate. And you'll be pleasantly surprised, and it'll save you some money and demerit points.
You're not wrong, and yes, I'm very well, I guess, versed in that conversation as well too. Yeah, 100%. And there's, especially when you're talking about something like traffic court, there's something to be said where if everybody, we had this whole thing happen in Winnipeg because of how horrible some of the Winnipeg policing here is against, with traffic law, the unmarked vehicles and the cameras everywhere, blah, blah, blah. And it was an idea amongst a group of people, a group of activists over a decade ago. And I've always, agreed with it, which was, take every single ticket to traffic court, because if you completely overload them, they start throwing a bunch of them out and taking down the prices.
Oh, listen, if 20% of the people who got tickets went to court, the court would be completely overwhelmed. Completely.
And then the whole thing would change.
But the system is designed that way. Let's give you, $150 ticket type of thing. And well, is that worth taking off a day of work and losing $200 to fight a $150 ticket? No, but you don't see that. Well, it's also the demerit points. It's also the increase in your insurance. Fight them every step of the way. And like I said, if only a small percentage of people fought the tickets, you would see all those things thrown out, because the court can't deal with. The court is expecting you to be complacent and acquiesce, pay the fine, and just keep feeding the monster.
Yes, I completely agree. And that seems
but I can't see. Are you getting any questions or anybody have some comments or anything on there that we should be addressing? Or
yes, plenty. I wouldn't even know where to start. Well, you know what we'll do? I think this is the best way to go with this, because otherwise I'd be scrolling back for ages. No, there's a very active audience tonight, and we're very, very happy to have a very active audience tonight. So we thank everybody for that, and please keep the questions and comments coming. So, as we're getting, up to about being on for an hour here, I want to go throw this at you there, Randy. Everything we've discussed, and we've certainly, got what I was hoping, what I was, really looking forward to getting from you, which is, of course, a really good picture, sort of from your perspective of, where Canada is at right now after what it's been through and is going through. The obvious next sort of bit of conversation from that is, from your experience, from everything you've seen, everything you've taken in, what would you say would be the best? And this is hard because there's different avenues to even kind of take with this, but what would you say would be the best things, or the message to Canadians to start to turn this around? Well, what are the steps that people need to take, even from just The average Joe that's got to just get up and work a 9 to 5 every day.
Well, I'll go like this, and I said this down at the ICS at the Crisis Summit.
Okay.
You know, as a young child, I used to go to bed terrified and with nightmares over the coming ice age. That's what the big fear was when I was a little boy. And I woke up as an adult to global warming. You know, everything that I had heard, acid rain, the hole in the ozone layer, the Y2K, the population bomb, the killer bees. It's all bullshit. Okay. And what, governments in the corporate world want you to live in a state of fear.
Exactly.
That way they can suck more money out of you and control how you behave if you're in a state of fear.
I think some of these, like, globalists and control freaks and outright, authoritarians, I think they've probably had to at least have some kind of sit down meeting, if not completely, hired the help of one Stephen King to to continue on in that manner. Keeping people in a state of perpetual fear has become so much of it's
just a concept.
The authors of this are very much like somebody who has to literally focus every bit of their creativity in horror.
Well, it's just a con, and and con men use different things, and we just have to realize that it's they want you stupid, duped, and fearful, so that they can put your hands in your pocket and put shackles on your legs and duct tape over your mouth, and keep taking more and more from you. So, you have to, you have to have some knowledge, you have to have some critical thinking abilities, and you have to have some backbone, and but just reject the narrative. Speak truthfully. That is the most powerful weapon we have, is our ability to speak truthfully. And when you hear a falsehood, you have the ability to call it out and to challenge it. That was how we got to be a prosperous, free civilization, was our ability to be truthful. So, and that's the way we get back to it. Don't be, fearful of somebody trying to shame you by calling you some names on bloody social media and whatnot. There's many other things. I think people are far too tied to technology. I think people are far too tied to their shoe phones and stuff.
And so in that, I guess it kind of leads me to my next one as well too. It seems like you've kind of already answered this in a sense, but I'll pose it anyways. Do you see, sort of like the way out, or some of the best tools, the best ideas, the best options for, starting to, change things, build stronger, better, more truthful, more honest, less governed communities? Do you see, the way outs there as overtly political, or are they more just sort of like individual or societal in nature, or are they also more spiritual, or I guess, or a combination?
All of those.
Yeah. I kind of figured.
I think, I will say that instead of belonging to a political party who that they're a bunch of crooks and con men, you rip up your membership card. Don't contribute any money to these fraudulent political operations, and never vote for the party. Vote for the person whose name is actually on the ballot, and empower the person, not the party. And I would say, for myself, I think having faith gives you that ability to speak truthfully far more than if you don't have faith. I think that's a very true statement. But and put down the technology and go out and cut some firewood and
go fishing, go for a walk in the woods, set up a tent.
Yeah.
What's something that I tell people all the time, and I can't believe how, and it's really sad because you'd figure, I guess people live vicariously through these things, but you'd figure that because there's this, great interest on television and stuff like that, even on social media of, people are out there in the woods and building their own things. And there has been a growth in sort of the living off the grid sort of ideology. There really has. And there's a lot of that, there's a lot of great stuff happening there. But it still does shock me sometimes when I go tell, friends of mine or whatever, like, hey, have you ever just gone off in a canoe and just spent like an island, a day or two on an island by yourself for a little bit? Yeah. And, most people think that that's still almost a crazy thing to even suggest. And I go, how dare you? It's wonderful. If you enjoy going to the cabin or going fishing, take it a step further. Like, just really be out there in the bush, just, you and the fire, you and the tent for a day or two.
Well, I think that is... I'm sitting in a log cabin. It was the original homestead on the farm here.
Which is gorgeous, by the way, I must say.
And it's over 200 years old. I rebuilt it and fixed it up during COVID. I do think that has been another big contributing factor is the disconnect between people and nature. And I don't mean just, going out fishing, but I like going out fishing. And I don't mean just going out in the woods, having livestock, having some chickens, having a garden. I get people I've had many people at this, at the camp here, Todd and Daryl, and I supply the firewood. I supply the kindling. I supply the fire starter, and they still can't get a fire bloody going in the bonfire pit. Like these are some things that if you're, and I do this all the time, analogies between nature and the political world and our society, and I think there is such a disconnect there that. Not having that understanding of nature and how nature actually works allows people to be very easily duped.
Yes, well said. I go, yes.
Like you come and see the chickens. They know the difference between a hen and a rooster. They know what they're supposed to be doing. No amount of propaganda is going to confuse these guys or girls.
And isn't that sad? We usually use the chicken, just like the mouse caught in the maze, as some sort of metaphor for what we don't want to be. But they're currently beating us at the game.
Yeah. These little chickens with a brain, the size of my thumb. Don't get confused. So, I think, and of course, that's, each person is going to have to look at their own circumstances, their own capacities and
Well,
abilities. and stuff. But
it's shocking to know that we live in this country that really like it's sort of some of its like greatest like symbolism and sort of like and its little jokes and stuff like that we have about us worldwide is like the lumberjack, the canoe, the
Yeah.
portage, the very much rough and tumble, rugged. It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
well,
It's unbelievable to think that, and still none of that has changed, everybody. It's still one of the things that I think about the most that is beautiful about this country. When even people ask me just about Winnipeg itself, I go, one of the things I love about the most, and then I think, you know what? I could probably say this about most large Canadian cities other than like Ottawa and Toronto. No, other than just Toronto, I think actually, where you can half an hour outside of any major city and you're somewhere very, very different.
yeah. Go out and, like, pluck some chickens, butcher a chicken, like, do learn about things, learn about where your food comes from and how.
Everyone's got to go back to Boy Scouts.
Yeah, like it is. I find it really disturbing that, and again, mostly on the man side,
Yes.
and I speak because I'm a man on that, like, but, I think first time I built an outdoor fire, I was probably 5 years old or so. First time I was out in a dory jigging for codfish with me and my brothers and cousins, I was 7 or 8 years old. No,
Yep.
like,
Yep.
Well, when I was a kid, we had a saying. It was the 3 Fs: fire or fucking freeze.
yeah.
I like it. Yeah.
So,
Beauty.
Yeah, we had wood heat when I was a kid, and everybody laughed at us.
mm,
That was when everybody was switching over to oil and electric heat. We
Well-
didn't, because we loved the wood heat, and I still do.
Well-
There's no heat like it.
well, there's an example. I heat both the cabin and my home. In my home, I've got an old wood cook stove, and I've got a wood stove, and I have a propane furnace, but I cut about 10 cords of wood a year, and that's what all I heat with.
Yeah, but you live in Southern Ontario, man. You don't even know what you're talking about.
Well,
Come up here to Manitoba and do a winter. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So, but I could. It's and I don't pay any carbon tax.
Well, yeah, right? Yeah.
There you go. Like, not only do I save money, I get some physical exercise. I enjoy doing it, and I'm not giving those crooks any more money than I have to.
Oh, but they're coming for you though, Randy. The more you keep burning wood and chopping down trees, oh my gosh. I mean, they're gonna try to up a sentence on you there just simply because of what you must be doing to the environment down there. Yeah, no, that's beautiful though, and I mean, I agree 110%, of course. Before we get into some audience questions, I wanted to just, because we had touched on it briefly, the sort of political nature of how to turn things around, so on and so forth, and you mentioned sort of vote for the person, not the party. The only thing I wanted to add to that and get your take on it is, what is your take on, independent politicians, independent parties, anybody, anything kind of, at any one level of politics, whether we're talking civic, provincial, or federal, wanting to spread out from the mainstream in any one way, shape, or form?
Well, it has to be, we don't have 338 voices in the federal parliament. What we have is 4. At most.
Yes.
We have Justin Trudeau's voice. We have Pierre Poilievre's voice. We have Dick and whoever runs the block. That's
hold on. Are we forgetting about Elizabeth May? Because I thought the Green Party was just doing amazing these days. I'm kidding.
Yeah. Okay. So, but anyway, you know what I'm getting at? Like,
yes, of course.
There. And our system is designed, like, we've got a really, really good design system. Each local community having a locally elected representative who goes to a meeting place to speak and voice the concerns of their community. So, conceptually, and for a long time, it has been the best system ever. But what we've allowed to happen is the party gets to decide who will be your candidate.
Now, let me quickly just interject this, because you said something that, I mean, I have to get this off before I forget about it. Is that process kind of failing, as I know you're just kind of discussing right now? Is that also very much to do? And I specifically have to go ask you about your possible experiences with this in just a very low turnout, a very low, I guess just a horrible reality in people actually engaging with those elected representatives.
I don't. So what's the question? What
is that process allowed to kind of shift and change in the way that we're discussing right now, and in the way that you're pointing out, because of low involvement from the voters, from the constituents themselves?
No, I wouldn't say it's from low turnout at all.
Well, not turnout in voting, or just involvement in continuing to hold their elected representatives, feet to the fire and be invested consistently.
So that's where the people have fallen. There's two areas where the people have fallen and allowed the system to become so distorted and eroded. First off, most people vote for a party and not for the person. That's number one. And
Right.
that has empowered the parties. At our inception of the parliamentary system here, the term party was meaningless. There was no actual party. The members who were elected chose who they were going to align with after they were elected. But that has incrementally and steadily become where now the parties control who is even on the ballot. But the bigger problem, in my view, is people have forgotten what their role is within a democracy, within a representative democracy. And that is, many people think that you can go out once every 4 years and cast a ballot, and everything will be good. You need to be, these people are supposed to be representatives. In order for them to represent you, you actually have to tell them what you think. You have to tell them what your concerns are. You have to explain to them why you think a piece of legislation or policy is harmful or injurious or detrimental to you.
Yes.
Representatives cannot represent you if you never talk to them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's just
Yes.
pretty deductive.
So when you were working, did you notice that kind of thing? Did it seem to almost have an effect on your job? Did you ever kind of get to the point where you're wondering, I'm getting voted in, people are supporting me, but then, once we get past, election or whatever, I get one person that comes to my office every month, or I get 2 emails.
Well, I did things very differently. Yeah. And,
you made the choice to engage the public more.
Yeah. I've gone to many members' offices, and I was shocked the first time I went, and their doors were locked, and you had to be buzzed in, or you had to have an appointment to go in. My door was always open. So I had it in a very high traffic location to make it accessible for people. And so I always had a great number of people, and also my history and my involvement in the community before I got into politics. There was an expectation by people in Lanark that I would go to battle for them, and I I would go out on Friday afternoons to the pub after work, my wife and I, and chat with who's ever in the pub, and they would talk to me and tell me what their interest was, and so.
My gosh, I wish I could do that with a local politician. Like that sounds like that's amazing.
Doesn't
Yeah,
work
it's
that way
wonderful.
here, that's for sure.
No, not even close.
No,
Not even
like most people in politics think that they're somehow, in an elevated position, and
Yes,
that and they shouldn't be accessible, or they don't want to be accessible, and oftentimes it's because of what they've bloody well done. They want to hide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was never fearful or concerned about my voting record or what I said in the House, and I was able to defend what I did. Now, like that's. But I'm a bit of an old school type of guy here on that regard, and
Oh, we hadn't noticed.
That's a good thing, though. That's a good thing. Okay, I guess one last question before I get into. I guess we'll close with questions from the audience. So only one last one from me then. What's your current take, your current perspective on Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives?
Well, I've known Pierre for over 20 years.
Very interesting. Okay, I would not have known that.
And everybody knows that Justin Trudeau's a drama teacher, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
and obviously, I don't know, a better one than politician, or just terrible on all accounts. I'm going to go with terrible on all accounts.
I will say to everybody listening, Pierre Poilievre could give Justin Trudeau acting lessons without question. He is a very polished actor. He's perfected the art of acting. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The leaders of a political party do not lead or control the legislative agendas or the public policy agendas. And I'll say that with absolute confidence and certainty for the three main parties, NDP, Liberal, and Conservative. It doesn't matter who's there. The corporate and the union interests, the lobbyists, the GR men, the pollsters, the inside party men,
the lifelong bureaucrats.
Not the bureaucrats. No, people. These are people that nobody ever sees unless you're in politics.
Is union influence becoming a bigger problem in Canada? Because we've noticed that here in Manitoba, especially when the NDP seems to kind of be closer at the helm.
So the NDP have traditionally relied on the union corporate. Unions are just another corporation. Okay.
Yes,
that's all they are.
Yes,
some parties are bought and paid for by the oil and gas corporate interests. Others are by the union interests. Others are by the legal and accounting industries. It's the lobbyists and the GR men who you guys never see and don't even know their names, who control the party. So, like in Justin Trudeau, Jerry Butts is more of the prime minister still today than Justin Trudeau's ever been. In Ontario here, Corey Tenike, Nick Kuvalis, Froggatt, those are Michael Diamond. Those are the people who actually control the political party. They're the ones who ensure that the leader of their choosing is anointed as leader. Most of the premiers and most of the prime ministers and leaders of the party are too stupid Like, they're not very smart people.
But that's why they're in that position, for that reason.
They're easily led, they're easily manipulated, and they've been
And
selected.
they're good in front of a camera.
Yeah. So, if anybody thinks that Pierre is going to lead them to the promised land, well, not likely.
Almost uncontrollable laughter. That's it.
So I've used this analogy, and I think this is the best analogy for politics. Politics is entertainment for the masses. That's what it's become. It's theater. And
bread and circuses.
Yeah. So Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre, they're the stars of this play right at the moment. The supporting cast are the cabinet and the shadow cabinet.
Jake meets Sting. He's like a cheerleader.
The extras are the backbenchers. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But in any good theatrical production, what you don't see and you don't know who they are is the screenplay writers, the producers, the directors. Those are the people who actually, the ones who give them their lines, the ones who tell them where they're going to be, what they're going to say, how they're going to do it. And those are the people who actually control politics in our country. And they are doing it for, and they're making gobs and bucket full of money doing it. And nobody knows who they are.
We have some ideas. I think we know some pretty big players. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
And they are, well, almost always international in nature. It's not just that's not like necessarily like there's a Canadian. There's a secret. Put it this way: there's no Canadian shadow government because it's very much well beyond Canada. Anyhow, and I'm sure Randy knows that quite well, as he's not putting up an argument right now. So yeah,
we have the corporate world is entirely synchronized and enmeshed in our political system. The political system is just the veneer for the corporate interests to move the agenda in their direction.
Well said. Well said. At this point, we will now get into the audience questions. I guess where to start? Well, this is kind of an awkward one because I know you're Ontario, but this is a question. We'll throw it up. Wexit. So I guess people are asking, do you agree with Alberta wanting to say screw you to Canada, that whole type of situation? Or inside of that, even any of the ideas of provinces, even for the right ideas, like, kind of a little different from, Quebec different from the Quebec separatist movement, so to speak. We have, especially with the Western provinces, namely Alberta and Saskatchewan, kind of chimed in a bit as well, too, about saying screw you to the federal government for a lot of the right reasons, really. But what's your take on that?
So, the only way your best form of government, and Thomas Jefferson articulated this well in the founding of the United States, is you need to have government that is small in its jurisdictions and is widely dispersed in its jurisdictions for it to be able to be kept in check. So I think our provinces in Canada are too large. That's my own personal view.
I get that. Yeah. So the sort of like the governing body has too much in hand, too much to.
We've got and I'll make this equivalency here in the United States, which is a smaller geographical size than us. It has, of course,
states are much smaller than all the provinces.
50, states. which have similar jurisdictions to our provinces. And what that, and we saw that very good in COVID, because there was more choices available, more states.
Yes.
You actually got some states like Florida and Texas and Idaho and a number of them who rebelled and rejected the COVID mandates.
And ended up actually gaining population, like people literally moved there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
not knowing any end in sight. Yeah.
So I think that's number one. I think our provinces are too big.
Well, and I'll agree with you in just saying this, because I actually have had that conversation before, and your provinces are one of the best examples. If you go take a look at where you are, and then go take a look at Kenora, there's no similarities. It's very, very different.
No, absolutely. But this is the problem with amalgamation, where you want to have a distribution of jurisdictions, not a concentration of jurisdiction.
Okay.
So I don't, and I think people ought to be sovereign, and the will of the people ought to be paramount. And if the people in Alberta decide that they prefer to be outside of the federal confederation, then I think there's an obligation to facilitate it. The same with Quebec. In 1949, Newfoundland joined Canada. Right? If a province can join, it should be able to unjoin.
Yes. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. I mean, I guess there's obviously the conversation: what does that do to the rest of the country? So on and so forth.
Well, who cares?
But you might be right in saying that, because of course I've thought the same myself as well too. I mean, you have this idea of like, oh well, look, we've always looked at Canada. Look, it's coast to coast. It's this big, beautiful thing. But really, who cares?
Is it going to stop me from putting food on my table or housing my family, or is Toronto going to sink into Lake Ontario if Alberta leaves? I don't think so. As much as I might like it to, it's not likely to happen. So Canada will still remain. It would be slightly reconfigured.
Would you think that these places, like, if it was Alberta, say, do you think that they would have issues? They would have problems just becoming now the country of Alberta? Or do you think they could just move from one to the other rather swimmingly?
Oh, I think it would be a piece of cake.
Really?
Of course.
It's just one of those things where it's hard to imagine, because it's so rare in occurrence, especially in Western civilization. In fact, it's almost like,
look what happened. No, like we see countries reforming all the time around the world.
It's true. It's true. Again, I'm just looking at North America, going like, well, that would be different. But no, I know you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Yugoslavia. It's split apart. Some of them have done better than others. Look at Ukraine was not a country until 1991, and then it became a country. I was just thinking the same thing. Yes, I was just thinking the same thing. Yes. Yeah.
So this is not. We've been creating jurisdictions for the entirety of man's history. There was a time when Alberta didn't exist, and it was called Rupert's Land.
I was going to say, and we can harken back to change is inevitable, right? I mean, it sounds like a bit of a lame statement, but it exists for a reason. It's true. Change is inevitable.
The state of Maine used to be part of Massachusetts.
How long ago?
Well, that was in the 1800s, but there was been a number of different states that have hived off from
changed their borders over time and other things as well too. Yes, very much so. Yeah, and and there was a point in time when it doesn't even go back too long ago, maybe like 15, maybe 20, but I want to say like not even 20 years ago, where actually the province of Ontario was heavily considering wanting to go ahead and offer Manitoba northwestern Ontario.
Yeah, well, that there'd always been some historically there had been some disagreement about, should part of northwestern Ontario actually be part of Manitoba.
It just it almost kind of makes sense in a way.
Well, sure, people in Kenora, and hell, even
they come to Winnipeg. They don't go to Toronto. They don't even go to Thunder Bay.
Yeah. So, I remember when I was a critic for Northern Affairs, I would often have to fly to Winnipeg first in order to get to Kenora.
Of course, yes, no doubt.
So the borders the more borders we have, the better we are. The more borders we have, the more choices we have. This is the flip side of globalism. Is you want to have as many borders as possible.
That's a very interesting perspective, and I certainly can't raise an argument against it necessarily right now, and I don't even want to, because I just want that to sit, because I like it as an idea, and I would just want that to sit. I like the way you're explaining that. That's very interesting. Okay, we'll move on to some of the other questions here. Hopefully this is a bit of a quick one. Summer or fall election?
Federally, I would suspect that the federal election, the way I see it happening, is by this fall, the Liberals will decide. The party people inside the Liberal Party will decide if they can't win with Trudeau, they'll give him the heave-ho, have him take a walk in the leaves. Put together a leadership campaign, which would probably happen in early next spring, or sometime next spring, and then a federal election sometime shortly after that, before the new guy gets tarnished with too much of the dirt from the old guy. That's the way I see it playing out right now. Unless Trudeau can come up with some, that would be fall. That would be fall election. That'll be summer of 2024, I suspect.
Okay, so this summer.
No, pardon me. The summer of 2020. Summer of 25.
2020. Okay, there we go. And you know what? I'm going ahead and say that's kind of where I'm leaning towards as well too. People thinking that it's going to be rushed into this year, I think might be a little misled. I don't necessarily see that happening.
No. There's no upside for the Liberals right now. They're too far down in the polls.
Does Trudeau get walked out nice? Get a nice sort of like a hey, you were great, yay, or do they burn him?
No, they'll walk him out nicely.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of figured the same. Okay, moving along. And by the way, again, audience, thank you so much for being here tonight.
The applause for him, as he was such a good man.
Yes, wonderful statesman.
Blah 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 blah.
Oh well, there's a whole family history. I mean, like, come on.
Yeah,
it's garbage. Anyways, Edward Embry, and sorry for not reading some of the names, but some of you got weird little like online nicknames, so I'm not going to read that crap, but I will read a real name. Edward Embry asks, where do you go from here, Randy? And what are your thoughts on Max Bernier? I think we kind of touched on that earlier, but I guess here's a direct question.
Well, I think Max and the PPC are the only organized party that I would have any, that will offer Canadians some legitimate, reasonable hope. For those people who really, really want to vote for a party, the PPC is the only option in Canada at the moment. But take a strong, hard look at. And I really do hope that the PPC get a couple seats. If they can get a couple seats, that would be tremendous for all Canadians. But also give a hard look at independence. If you've got
yes, that's why I brought it up earlier. Absolutely. Yeah. Here in Manitoba, we got the Keystone Party. You got the Buffalo Party in Saskatchewan. There's Wild Rose and others in Alberta. I mean, I want to see more independents running in civic politics as well, too, because that's one of the best places to actually go help and change things right from the local, right from the community, right from the ground up.
Yeah,
So,
and there's also in Saskatchewan, there's Nadine Wilson. She was down at the ICS as well.
Cool.
With her
I got to talk to her. I got to get her on. Nadine Wilson?
The United Saskatchewan Party.
Cool.
Yeah. So, people take a look around, but, at the end of the day, you want somebody who is going to be a good representative and not just a good party follower.
Well, yes, of course. Yeah. No, somebody who is like actually very much an understanding of how and who they got voted in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And who doesn't have a leash on them.
yes, of course. Yeah. And so I'm sure, just to give us a little more insight, because I know people are curious because of the fact that, Max is a spokesperson in a way for a lot of this stuff, right? He went through the ringer, such as yourself. He got arrested here in Manitoba. I've been close with him many, many times as well too. The whole thing of leaving the Conservative Party to start his own, there's a lot of attention paid to the steps and the things that he's been involved in and that he's taken as a stance on. And so I'm sure because you've been able to have some really great conversations with him sometime in the last few years, I'm sure. Just give us just anyone a little more insight into, what you think about the man and what you think about the idea and the platform of PPC and what it's done since its inception.
So Max is a good fella and he's sincere and he's he's a real small government man. So that's those are all good attributes, all good characteristics. Where I'm getting at with this is, don't get sucked into the party trap. Okay? Like, if the PPC has a good candidate in your riding, by all means, but they're a new party, and it's a struggle to get quality candidates in every riding. Canada's a big country. To organize a cohesive.
Yes, I did, Steve. Yes, I did.
Like from Vancouver Island to Newfoundland to the territories. Like that's a big chunk of territory. But if you like I said, the only party that has the ability to start steering us away from this road to dystopian control and authoritarianism is Max at the moment.
Okay, well, there we go. Those are some pretty powerful words right there. So as it stands, I can only say about two more things, I think, which would be one, of course, our very own, oh shoot, I'm forgetting the name again. Our very own co-host, Daryl Inkster. Daryl, come on, I'm sure you got a few things to say. Please take the,
you warned me right out just listening to you.
He's the former superintendent of the RCMP. He must have something to say.
He must.
Yeah. That was a dark part of our family history. I don't know. I just, thanks for coming on, Randy. It's been very interesting, which I figured it would be. And,
well, I'm glad to be on with you, and I hope everybody's enjoyed things, and
for sure.
No, this has been an absolute pleasure, 100%. And I was just going to say, okay, so now I guess if Daryl doesn't have anything else to say, then we'll throw it back to the audience. So please, audience, if you have any last questions or comments for Randy, now is the time. Get them in and get them in now. And I can't believe, even though somebody in the audience did remind me earlier in the broadcast, that I once again forgot the name of Johnny Carson's co-host.
Ed McMahon.
Ed McMahon. Thank you. I keep wanting to say Ed Asner. Every single time I want to say Asner, and I don't know why. That's why I have to stop myself and second guess myself. Yes, Ed McMahon. All right, my God,
You know,
Daryl, I'm changing your name on screen to McMahon. All right, so I can just remember.
Knock yourself out.
but I guess I'll end it with this. Like, we showed in Ottawa that, and I've used this term. Every time we honked the horn, the science changed.
Yeah.
People may not remember, but all those mandates were every provincial province, every province announced during that time that they were ending their mask mandates. They were ending the curfew in Quebec, that they were going to be repealing the school stuff, the vax passports, and not only did the science change in Canada when we honked those horns, the science changed around the world.
Yeah.
And, that's what being in a democracy is about. It's about being engaged. It's about being involved. When something is not going right, I mentioned earlier, a lot of people think, well, they can go to the ballot box once every 4 years and then not look at that thing called Parliament ever again. And just think of it. If you had a garden, are you only going to look at it and go and plant it once every 4 years? If you've got a truck or a tractor,
said.
Are you just going to try to use it once every 4 years and expect that it's going to be up and operational 4 years later?
Exactly.
No. You got to maintain your democracy. That means you got to get off your ass and you got to speak out and you got to tell people what you're expecting if you want it to work for you.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Just isn't it kind of wonderful that gardening, because gardening is such a wonderful endeavor. And by the way, any man out there that thinks that gardening is like a woman's thing to do, think about what farming really is as well too, and where that started. You're wrong. If you have, I don't care if you have 10 square feet in your backyard. If you're the man of the house and you still think that that's what you want to go do, put the garden in and tend to the garden, man, and show the kids how to do it as well too. It's an important thing. Anyways, I love how that can be used. So do I. So do I. It always seems to be some weird people got a weird thing with that sort of like. Anyways, I love how it can be used as a great metaphor for stuff like that, and that was a great way to use that gardening metaphor. You hear it in many, many different walks of life. How you tend. Is how you tend to, you know what? I don't even think that fits any better than the way Randy just used it as to do with government of all different levels, especially. And my gosh, it seems like we've been saying this till we're blue in the face for so many years here now, but we're going to keep doing it. And you notice how it's not just us, it's everybody, including people who know a lot better and are a lot more experienced than I and other people that we have on the broadcast and such, like a Randy Hillier, saying that, if you don't tend to, and I'm going to go once again and say the smallest level of politics, that right there, your MLA, your city councillor, those ones that you like, they're right there in your community because they're supposed to be the ones you have a close relationship with because they're important in doing so. If you do not enact that, like any other muscle, it atrophies and dies.
Yeah.
Like any garden, without tending, it dies.
Yeah.
And then what do you get? Well, you get some stuff that, you get weeds. You get shit you don't want.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to thin it out, or else they're going to be all stunted in there. So,
yes,
there's all, and that goes back to what I was saying about people being, if people were a little bit more connected with nature, they would be able to see this in real life, in real time. how tending to things is a must. You know, but I should also say, if there's anybody still listening, some good supporters have put on a fundraiser for me this Sunday, March 10th in Iroquois in Eastern Ontario. So it's up on my social media platforms. If you want to come out for a Sunday afternoon potluck lunch and fundraiser, some live music, we'll be in Iroquois, Ontario this weekend. And of course, if anybody wants to come to Scuttlebutt Lodge, it's you can book that online on the website nomorlockdowns.ca.
You want to let me get that up on right on. Hold on. No more. Hold on. Read that out one more time.
Yeah, nomorlockdowns.ca.
There we go. Let me make sure to have that up on screen for everybody. And please go check out that website. I mean, oh my gosh. I have to go check out that website right away. I could probably have some time off coming up this summer. I think I got to head down there. That sounds amazing. I love the look of everything that's by. Well, Randy, how many people have ever told you to make one of those suspenders green just for the heck of it?
I have green suspenders, and 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be wearing them.
You need one. You ever do the one red, the one green? No, I don't know.
No. I've got lots of different suspenders, but I have my St. Patty's Day suspenders.
Oh, there we go.
And I've got my Christmas suspenders, and I've got my purple suspenders, and I like to keep my pants up, so I have different suspenders.
That's beautiful. I love it, man. I think we had like one last question here, but it doesn't really need to be asked. I think we've already very much answered it, but we'll just throw it up there because I know, people want to make sure that their questions are being asked. Or what was it? Did I just lose it here? Where did it go? I know this is right around here. Oh, where was that? Oh, yeah, here we go. Should we have more referendums and decisions?
Absolutely. Without question.
What's the best way for the public to go push that? And can you push a referendum into decision even in civic and provincial politics?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Anywhere in politics, right? Yes.
Anywhere.
What's the best way for people to understand how to do that?
Well, I introduced recall and referendum legislation in the Ontario legislature. Most elected people are very, very hesitant and reluctant, especially on the recall legislation. They don't want to be subject to that. British Columbia has both.
Well, somebody just asked, how do we recall legislation? You just touched on that. So there we
go. British Columbia has both. Just about every United States has both recall and referendum. So, the parties don't like referendums because then they can't cater to their corporate interests as well if people have a voice in the decision making as well. So, but yeah, you can do it at, you wouldn't want to do it for frivolous things, or minor things.
No.
But, I think, for example, at the municipal level, things like here in Ontario, we call them official plans, but it's the planning document. Like that should easily be up for a referendum. Any new taxation measures could easily be incorporated into a referendum measure. It's really, a good model of that is many of the Swiss cantons with their equivalency to a provincial jurisdiction here, although much, much smaller. But many of those Swiss jurisdictions have plebiscites that must ratify the legislation adopted by the cantons. So it goes even one step further. You know, you can pass the law, boys and girls, but we still have to ratify it. So, you know, but yeah, the more involvement, you know, again, go back to your muscle metaphor, the more you practice that democracy, the stronger it becomes. So without question, we should have far more referendum legislation throughout the country.
Yeah. Did we lose Todd again?
I think we lost Todd. We'll have to.
I can see him, but I can't hear him.
Oh, sorry. No, I did mute myself. That's my bad. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. So I think
You'll have to show me how to do that. To you, not to me.
What? How dare you, Daryl?
I had someone tell me I should get a raise today, and I said, they asked me how much you pay me by the hour, and I said, you pay me by the decade, and I'm lucky if I get a 6-pack of that blue Omeo beer.
Come to Winnipeg and we'll change that, man. Anyhow.
Well, we ain't getting rich by grifting here in Dauphin, let me tell you.
Oh, well, that's how we're all getting rich. We're all a bunch of grifters, says the excited left. But we're not even going to touch on that. Daryl, why would you bring that stuff to this broadcast? How dare you?
Well, listen, boys, if you ever want to come up to real redneck country, come to Lanark County and spend a night or two at the camp with me, and we'll have a little chin wag around the bonfire pit and maybe a beverage or two.
Well,
the same offer applies to you, man. I live in the sticks here too. I'm right in the bush.
Right on. Well, I know there's a lot of good people out in that part of the country. Manitoba was a pretty strong defender of freedom.
At one time. Yeah.
Well, no, even during COVID, you guys did some good stuff there at the legislature, and you did some good stuff down in at the border crossing there as well. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. All friends of Winnipeg Alternative Medias, of course. Yeah, all very much in close ties. Everybody was a part of that, and of course, actually, I should say we were a part of that. Yeah. And happy to be doing so. And again, I'll just make sure to mention here in closing, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on, Randy. It feels like it's been a long time waiting, and I don't want it to be, another several years or anything like that. I'd love to have you back on again sooner than later. You're just, you're a joy to talk to. You have lots of wonderful experience and lots of things that you can touch on with knowing very full well what you're saying and how you're saying it. But beyond that, you're just actually a lot of fun to talk to, and and a great sense of humor as well too. And those are things that I appreciate just as much as the former. So thank you very, very much. Thank you for making the time to be with us here tonight. A 2-hour broadcast is, it's so information packed. The things I could, it's one of those things where it's like I could pretty much just sit down. If I was at Scuttlebutt Lodge right now, I would be perfectly happy to be at the bonfire and just simply say, Randy, tell me some stories. Well, I would just sit and listen, man, because I love it. There are lots of stories. I'm sure there are, and I'd like to hear more. But no, we appreciate you like you wouldn't believe, man. Thank you so much for everything you've done, everything you've been doing, and everything you're continuing to do. You're wonderful, and please, by all means, you choose your own closing. I'm going to throw it back to you, and then we'll say goodnight, and we'll hopefully have you on again real soon and talk to you again real soon. So I'll throw it to you, man. I'm going to take even myself off screen. Have a great rest of your night, Randy. Take care. God bless you. You take. Thank you very much. And listen, everybody, the dark days are here, but we just keep plugging along and pushing along, and better days are ahead. So have a lovely evening, and we'll look forward to talking to y'all another time, and good night.
And there we go, everybody. And we will also say a little goodbye to our wonderful co-host, Daryl Inkster. Daryl, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
It's been, well, what did you think?
Oh, I think it was good. I knew it would be. He's a very
There's nothing like
well-read
listening.
man. Yeah, he's a great guy to talk with. Yes,
100%.
he is. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're all going to have to sit back and kind of take that in. That was 2 hours. As far as I'm concerned, some incredible information and feedback that you're not going to get from the likes of anywhere else other than just his mouth, his experience. And thankfully, I guess, as of right now, tonight, our platform, Winnipeg Alternative Media. And wow, how amazing that we get to do that kind of wonderful thing again. So Daryl, again, like I just did with Randy, I'll throw it to you. You have your own little moment to go close your own little bit off here.
Okay. Well, I guess I would like to thank everybody that showed up here tonight. I apologize. I can't read those questions. They're just too small for my old eyes. I'm just working off a phone here. So I'll look through them, and maybe we can submit them to Randy yet. And maybe he'll answer you personally. I don't see why he wouldn't. But
There we go.
yeah, I think it went well.
It very much did. Daryl, we look forward to seeing some of the next interviews and big have coming up. I know you're always working on some future stuff as well too, stuff that we're going to do together and stuff that I know you'll be handling on your own as well too. So I'm sure we'll have more of that to announce in the next coming days.
Yes, sir.
All right, brother. Take care, man.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for letting me use the platform and stuff.
What do you mean use the platform, Daryl? You're a part of the platform. We love you,
Yeah.
brother. You're a part of the
I
platform.
might decide to disappear one of these days either. I never did sign a contract.
Neither would I ever ask you to either. That's horseshit. No.
Probably
No,
got
we're all
to wait
having-
10 years for that 6-pack of beer, though.
No way, man. I'll fucking mail you one if I have to. All right, Daryl. Take care. I hope everything's going. I hope you guys aren't too buried in snow up there in Dauphin.
No, it's fine. The wind's just got to quit. That's all.
Yeah, you're used to it. All right. Take care, brother.
All right, man. Later.
Okay. Again, and we want to make sure to mention this. If you want to go see more reports. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm back. All right. The internet here is just crazy. Of course, we would like everybody to really understand that if you want to go see any more broadcasts, I mean, I shouldn't say it like that. If you want to go support this platform and go, help us to create more content like this, to help us go spread out and to have much more broadcast live on the streets, to help more of our volunteers out, to be able to create more content, to be able to create more content in a better fashion, to be able to just simply spread out in so many different fashions as we're planning on doing, and we are doing actively as we speak right now. As you can see, we've had content coming out every day for the last several days now. We're only going to increase it more. We know how important 2024 is. We're just trying to be bigger of a part of it and get more and more out. We're going to have more and more. We want more and more people on the streets. We want more and more studio broadcasts, everything. The way to help us do that is with any size of donation, $5, $10, $15, $20, doesn't matter. Support independent media, donate to Winnipeg Alternative Media, support citizen journalism here in Winnipeg and Manitoba. E-transfer to winnipegaltmedia@gmail.com. Of course, you can go find so much, every little bit of great Winnipeg and Manitoba independent citizen journalism, alternative media at our wonderful website, wham.live. New stuff up there right now at Wham Live. And of course, if you would like to go, hold on. If you would like to also go check us out on, well, please join us on Rumble if you're not already there. And you can join us on X, on Instagram as well too, at WPG Alt Media. You can join us on Telegram as well too, t.me/whamchat. That does it for me, everybody. I am heading out of here. Tommy Dougal signing off from Winnipeg Alternative Media. We are going to have a wonderful 49th Parallel broadcast coming up real soon. And of course, I'll be back Thursday night at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time for the Prairie Truth. All right, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Welcome to the 2023 World Economic Forum.
Excuse me.
I penetrate deep half of this cabinet. We need to overcome climate change. But the spirit of Davos is into the negative, the most critical fragmentation, extinction.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
We do know we have to uphold our responsibility. The reshaping of supply chains, systemic transformation. Our generation has reached a turning point. Quantum computing, climate change, extinction. I penetrate Prime Minister Trudeau.
Never apologize for an LBT.
Stupid son of a bitch.
Come on, man.